Well, ladies and gentlemen, we still have a drink line there, but dinner is ready to be served, and me and my friends at CWU want to get things rolling. So with their thumbs up, we're going to get things rolling. So my name is John Goodat. I'm with I wear a couple of hats around the arena, shall you say, tonight. I'm wearing the hat of I'm a proud member of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame Board. And I want to welcome everybody to our Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame banquet. Congratulations to our 5 inductees. We're going to be talking to them. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be talking to them throughout the evening. But before we get going for dinner and everything like that, I just want to say thank you to everybody. The Ellensburg Rodeo, I don't want to say this banquet means more or less than any other banquet in years past. Thank you very much. I don't want to say that this banquet means anything more or anything different than in years past, but this is 100 years of Ellensburg. 100 years of Ellensburg. And I acknowledge my bias. I say the same thing when I'm talking about the Ellensburg Rodeo or our top hands or our posse member or the Hall of Fame board. I'm biased towards Ellensburg. I've been to a lot of rodeos, probably haven't been to nearly as many of rodeos as our 5 inductees tonight. But there is nothing like an Ellensburg Rodeo. So when I think about our top hands, like today was our loadout day, getting everything ready for the rodeo next week. Top ends were there bright and early at 6:30 in the morning after working until about, midnight or something last night in the arena, getting everything rolling. Our posse members are celebrating and talking about Ellensburg Rodeo throughout the entire Pacific Northwest, and you can see them. They're the easiest guys to find anywhere in a crowd with those awesome yellow shirts. You know, the top hands, the posse members, the Hall of Fame board. So this is my first year. This is not my first year involved with rodeo, but this is my first year as a proud member of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. And it is amazing what these people do. They're passionate about rodeo. They're passionate about preserving and celebrating the Ellensburg Rodeo. They're incredibly focused on building our archives and making our museum as interactive as possible. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Talk about our countless volunteers. There's so many people, countless volunteers, even nameless volunteers that just show up because they want to help the rodeo, whether it's with the posses or the top hands or our Hall of Fame board. I know our Ellensburg Rodeo board calls on a lot of volunteers as well. So 100 years of Ellensburg and 5 incredible inductees tonight. We have Cody Ohl, multiple-time world champion. Multiple-time world champion Rich Skelton. Rob Smets, one of the most decorated bullfighters ever in the PRCA. We have Mr. Dan Mortensen, 7-time world champion as well, and the Golden Voice. I might have the mic tonight, but Justin McKee is the Golden Voice, one of the most unique voices who celebrates not only Ellensburg Rodeo, but he is a passionate supporter of rodeo around the world. So a round of applause to our 5 inductees tonight, too. I wanted to recognize and acknowledge and give thanks to a handful of people. You'll notice your banquet magazine here. I'm sure everybody's been flipping through it, but page 8, I believe it's page 8, is where we're recognizing a lot of our supporters, either on an annual or a lifetime basis, who are people who are supporting the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame, but our rodeo supporters in general as well. But some specific people that I wanted to say hello to and send thanks to. Obviously, our Ellensburg Rodeo board, most of them are here tonight, the hardest working board in professional rodeo. CW Catering and Media. I do a lot of banquets here for various entities, I guess you could say. You guys are phenomenal. The food and service is wonderful. The tech guys who are behind me, who won't get any of the spotlight shine on them, they give me so much peace of mind. They do a wonderful job. Our banquet chair, and I can't see, Donna Hunyon, this is a labor of love. And a lot of people put this together. This banquet doesn't happen without Donna. Donna is amazing. She is very good at logistics. Our meetings are always timely and good. Sometimes they get a little bit emotional, and Donna wraps us all together, and she gets them rolling. She gets us rolling. So Donna, thanks for keeping me sane. Tom and Sherry Ott from Home Video Studio. They have been phenomenal in putting their spin on the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Anybody who's been to our speaker series in the museum or who have watched our speaker series on either streamings or YouTube, it's because of Tom and Sherry Ott. So thank you very much for filming tonight too, Tom. So. The Kittitas County Cattlewomen, they have always been a huge supporter of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. You can see they are providing the desserts for our dessert dash tonight. You can see the dessert dash pamphlet or form on your table, as we've done in the past before. The highest, the table who bids the highest, a combined highest bid, you'll get to pick first, and then the second highest bid is second, and so on. But the Kittitas County Cattlewomen, they're the reason for the dessert dash tonight. Obviously, the Ellensburg Rodeo Posse helping us 10 bar. The top hands are helping us 10 bar as well. Austin Smith, who is our artist, one of our silent auction items, he will be signing anybody that buys a bottle of wine. He can sign that for you tonight. I also want to say hello to a couple of royalty members here, our 2023 Little Miss NPRA, Caitlin Muratori, and our 2023 Washington Rodeo Roundup sweetheart, Josie Muratori, as well, here at table number 3. If we're going to talk about royalty, we have to talk about Queen Alexis. Alexis, if you can stand and give us a wave. Our Ellensburg Rodeo Queen, Miss Alexis Andrews. This lady has not only been all over the state, not only been all over the Pacific Northwest, all over the West, all over Canada. I mean, you had to go through British Columbia and Alberta to get to Calgary. She was in a monster truck last weekend, I believe. She was in Kennewick and got home at like 2 a.m., and she's here, and she looks better than all of us, I'm sorry to say. She is wonderful. Miss Queen Alexis Andrews is here. Not to be topped. If Alexis gets the spotlight, the second best looking person here is Mr. Brian Twardowski, the Ellensburg Rodeo Board president here. The Rodeo Board might not agree with that, but the Ellensburg Rodeo Board is here. If we can get away from you guys, Ellensburg Rodeo Posse, our Ellensburg Rodeo Top Hands president, Mr. Matt Olson. Come on, Matt, you got to stand. Give us a wave. There we go. We've got some past Ellensburg royalty here, some visiting royalty as well. I talked about Donna. Where's Kent Lester, our Hall of Fame president? He is amazing and helping us out. Thank you very much, Kent. How about the entire Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame board in our blue shirts? Can everybody stand up if you're on the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame board? Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be a part of this board. It's very fun. They're very hard workers, and it's just an honor to be a part of them. I mentioned a couple of our inductees are not here. Rob Smets, Rich Skelton, and Cody Ohl, all of them had prior engagements. In fact, when I talked to Rich the other day, he wasn't sure if he was going to be teaching clinics in Tennessee or traveling around with his daughter Rainey, who's doing quite well in barrel racing right now. So he is full on in dad mode this weekend. But our two inductees who are here tonight, Mr. Dan Mortensen, if you can give us a wave and a tip. There we go. And Mr. Justin McKee as well, right here in table number 4. We will get to dinner here really quick, but I want to invite up to the stage Mr. Brian Twardowski of the Ellensburg Rodeo Board. He wanted to say a couple of words. Like I said, this is 100 years of Ellensburg Rodeo. It is incredible what we put together. Every year it's an incredible event, but this year is a little bit more special. So, Brian, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your kind words about my physique. I've been working on that, but who knew? Wow, what a beautiful night and a beautiful crowd and a beautiful event that we're celebrating. 100 years. You know, for me personally, it's a privilege of a lifetime to represent the rodeo board. We've got many of them, most of them in the crowd tonight. It's a band of brothers and a beautiful sister. We absolutely love our rodeo with a passion. But you know what's interesting is our passion and our excitement for the 100th, it's not a new idea. It's not new. You know, I often get asked, 100 years, what are you guys going to do that's unique? What are you going to do that's special? And we've got some things up our sleeve. There's a lot of cool things we're going to do in the next 10 days. But I also get asked, what's changed? How has things changed? Isn't it amazing how rodeo's changed, how Ellensburg's changed, how society's changed in 100 years? And it's true. Obviously, there's many, many things that have changed about how we live and what we do every day. But I'll tell you, the core of the Ellensburg Rodeo hasn't changed one darn bit. It's real simple. The Ellensburg Rodeo exists because we're here to serve our community. We are here to create an event and a platform for us to celebrate who we are, celebrate our heritage, celebrate our forefathers, celebrate our family, our neighbors. And that's what the Ellensburg Rodeo has always been about. Community service. You know, the greatest form of leadership is servant leadership. And I'm so proud to be a part of not only the rodeo board, but the Top Hands and all of our other allied organizations, because at the end of the day, what we do is all about service. It's about serving one another. It's about serving our family, our friends, and our neighbors and our community. And it culminates in community service that we celebrate starting in 1923, and we've been celebrating it every year since. And I'm certainly proud to stand up here today and help us usher in really a big kickoff to the next 10 days. They're going to be a beautiful form of service, a beautiful form of leadership, community service. So hats off to everybody that's in this room tonight. Let's go have a great 10 days, but let's have a wonderful night. It's a beautiful night. Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much. Who here is hungry? I am. It looks great. Central Washington University, thank you very much. Before we eat, if you can join me in a moment of prayer. Lord, we want to give you thanks for the bounty you've placed before us tonight. It's a bounty of food, yes, but also a bounty of friendship and family and fellowship as well. It's because of you that we get to honor those who took the blessings you bestowed upon them and they put them to work to be the best they can be for rodeo and the Western way of life. Keep watch over us as we continue to celebrate the cowboys and cowgirls who in the arena dirt and beyond. And we say this in your name, Lord. Amen. So I invite our inductees and their tables, along with Miss Queen Alexis Andrews, to start us off at the buffet tables. We have 2 lines here of tables. If our inductees and our queen can start us off, our queen and her chaperones, and then we're gonna figure out how this line works, and so I'll be excusing tables by numbers here. So inductees, Miss Queen Alexis, if you want to start us off.
Howdy. What we wanted to do tonight, can you hear me okay? Okay. What we wanted to do tonight before we get started on the induction is talk a little bit about the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame and our history. And so we kind of organized it into then and now. And I'm going to do the then part because I'm the historian, and John's going to do the now part. And I think there's probably a slideshow going to start here pretty soon. And we've got some slides that are going to be running that are from the 1997 induction that we held for the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame, which was to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Ellensburg Rodeo. How many of you were at that first induction? It was over in the old sub ballroom, about a couple hundred yards from here, and it was quite a night. And what I'd like to do now is tell you a little bit about how the Hall of Fame started and how we got to the point where we actually got a museum, because it took a while for all that to happen. And it starts in the mid-1990s. I was working on a book that I eventually published with University of Nevada Press about rodeo, and I had to do some traveling around the country, and I visited several halls of fame during that time. And of course, I went to the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, and I went to the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, and then I went to the Cowgirl Hall of Fame when it was still in Hereford, Texas. It wasn't in Dallas-Fort Worth, which was very interesting. And then I saw some other ones along the way too, like in small towns. I saw halls of fame. In Elk City, Oklahoma, at the county museum upstairs, they have a room called the Butler Room for the Butler Brothers Rodeo Company, and this was a local hall of fame. And these were scattered around the country. And I got thinking, we could have one of those in Ellensburg. We could do that. And the 75th anniversary of the rodeo was coming up. John Ludko was writing the 75-year history of the Ellensburg Rodeo. Everybody was getting ready to celebrate that in 1997. And I was driving home from Pendleton in 1996, and I thought, we ought to have a Hall of Fame in Ellensburg. And I started talking to some friends, and Betsy Billiter and Nancy Graham and I always like to laugh and say that the Hall of Fame was created around their kitchen tables, which in a way it was. They were both Wranglerettes, and of course they were angling to get the Wranglerettes inducted into the Hall of Fame right off the bat. And we talked about that, but things really never got moving until I talked to Joel Smith, who was on the rodeo board, and suggested the idea to him. And then he talked to Rick Cole, and they pitched the idea to the Ellensburg Rodeo Board that was getting ready to celebrate the 75th anniversary. So we had Lutka's book, 75th Diamond Anniversary, and the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame, which was going to be a banquet. I mean, we weren't thinking about a museum at that point. We were thinking about having a banquet and inducting people at the banquet, and it turned out to be a heck of an occasion. The founding board members of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame were John Ludka, Betsy Billiter, Nancy Graham, Joel Smith, Rick Cole, Sandy Kern Bryan, Keith Love, Bob Kelly, Don Mays, Sam Kaiser, Dick Powers. Recognize a couple of those names, eh? And that fall after the banquet, Terry Phillip joined the board and was a very early member of the Hall of Fame board. And so we did it. We had an induction, and that induction included, and get this, and you're seeing some of their images on the screen here, but I mean, in that induction, Jim Shoulders came, Dean Oliver came, Tom Ferguson. We inducted Monty Montana that night, the Yakima Nation, Doc Finning, the Cutting Horse Bosky Boy. Man, it was something. And then the question was, what next? What next? And it's kind of like the dog that's chasing the car, and then catches the car and doesn't know what to do with it after he caught it. And we were thinking, well, I guess we could have a website. And so we created a website, and people began to give us things. And initially we stored them in my mom's attic, the contributions. But we were blessed because Tim Eckert was the state archivist at that time, and he joined the Hall of Fame board. And he was followed by Bridget Clift, who was also state archivist. She took Tim's position. And so we were blessed with professional archivists from the outset to help create a Hall of Fame collection and store all of those artifacts. Well, we had more inductions. We inducted Larry Mahan down at Sue Lombard Hall. Deb Copenhaver, and that was a heck of a night. Deb Copenhaver, Christensen brothers, Driver family, and Gene Miles all in one night. And they were all about the same age and had been at the rodeo at the same time, and that was really cool. Joe Beaver, we inducted here. Trevor Brazil, we inducted. Charmaine James, Marty Wood. You read the names in the program, all of the inductees to the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. The rodeo grandmas were inducted to the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame, and the list goes on. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, and these inductions, some people are saying, well, doesn't the Hall of Fame have a museum? I mean, isn't there supposed to be a museum that goes with all of this? And we were having displays. We would have displays at our inductions. We have displays. The rodeo let us have an office in the Western Village, and we had displays there. We had displays at the driver house, where the rodeo had a couple of cabinets for us. But the question was, well, is there going to be a museum, and where is it going to be? And the initial idea was the driver house. There would be a museum at the driver house. But the chamber partnered with the rodeo there eventually, and there wasn't enough room for a Hall of Fame. And so we started thinking about maybe the rodeo grounds. There would be a museum at the rodeo grounds. But there was always a core group on our board, a group that wanted it to have the museum downtown, so it could be a year-round tourist attraction, and be in the heart of Ellensburg and part of the downtown, and create, so we could have a sign on the interstate, visit the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. And we hope someday to have that sign, but we've got the museum now, because that's where we ended up. But before we ended up there, we had to have money. That was the other thing. Where's the money? And the question is, enough money to buy a building or enough money to be renters, to become anchor tenants with a long-term lease? And where's this money going to come from? And let me tell you, when I was the president of the Hall of Fame, we were broke, okay? For 7 years, we were broke. I mean, we were talking Krispy Kreme donut sales, you know. Then finally, you know, there was a gal on the Hall of Fame board, Stacy Young, Shark. And Sharky said, you know, we ought to have these boots. They would be like big, giant cowboy boots. And local artists would paint and do works of art on the boots, and then we would auction them off and make money that way. And, you know, I'm not a real broad-minded guy, and that, you know, the idea kind of went in one ear and out the other with me. I was thinking, oh yeah, you know, we're going to sell cowboy boots. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, we did sell cowboy boots, and it's because the Smith family got involved. And the Smiths, as you know, are a family that have rodeo and cowboy connections, but also have art connections. You know what I'm saying? And those two worlds, the art world and the rodeo world, are in Ellensburg because of the college and all of the artists that we have around here. And so they put that together, and we had a series of art auctions. And many of you remember these. They just ended last year, was the last one. And we made enough money from those art auctions to get a long-term lease, and it happened at the Clymer Museum on Pearl Street in downtown Ellensburg. And there had always been a group in the Clymer Museum and the Clymer Endowment that wanted to make an alliance with the Hall of Fame and get some kind of combination between Western art and the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. And their anchor tenant down there at the Clymer Museum was the Downtown Pharmacy. And around 2019, the downtown pharmacy closed. It went out of business because the pharmacist retired. And so that was our chance. And we had enough money that we could talk to them. And we eventually got a long-term lease. And that includes not just the old downtown pharmacy, but also upstairs. The Clymer Endowment refurbished the upstairs, created office suites, income-producing properties. The Hall of Fame has an archive up there. And downstairs, we blasted a hole in the wall between the, I should say, Belsaw Smith blasted a hole in the wall between the Clymer and the downtown pharmacy. And we got the bricks to prove it. Out in back of the Hall of Fame are a bunch of bricks from that wall. And we made an entrance from the Clymer Museum into the downtown pharmacy. And we opened the Hall of Fame in the summer of 2020. Now, summer 2020. Yeah, during the pandemic. I mean, in high irony, we finished the Hall of Fame really during the winter and the spring of 2020, got everything ready to go, and the pandemic hit and the lockdowns. And we opened the thing up anyway. Under phase 2 restrictions, we had a soft opening in July of 2020. Hey, thanks. Since you like that, let me tell you, we also had a, quote, induction that summer, unquote. We had a press conference, and there were about 25 people there, and we inducted Slim Pickens and Mabel Strickland into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame that summer. Well, that's where my part of the story ends, because John Goudot is going to take it over here. But I want to say one more thing. We did all of this because of the money that came in from the community, including many people who are sitting in this room right now who bought art, who became life members of the Hall of Fame, who wrote checks to us, who bought tickets to come to the banquet. And, we made it happen. And getting back to something that Brian Twardowski said early on, it's all about the volunteers. We're a volunteer board. We don't have a salaried staff at the Hall of Fame. It's a volunteer board, and you folks helped us make this happen. And so, yeah, we got a Hall of Fame in downtown Ellensburg. And John Goudot is going to tell you about what we're doing down there.
I don't know if I have as many facts and figures and stories and anecdotes as Mike does, but I'm going to try here. So to take over from July of 2020 and kind of moving into 21, 22, 23, and 100 years from now, maybe, in 100 years, I fully expect Justin to be our announcer at the rodeo, and I fully expect to see Dan Mortensen come out of retirement for the short round in 100 years from now. No pressure, gentlemen. But some of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of years, to pick up where Mike left off, literally, anybody who's been to the arena last year saw we've always had a arena records board, or arena records, board up at the arena, and it was getting a little weathered, a little beat up. Looked like it had been bucked off. Savvy lady maybe once or twice, but now we improved that by making it bigger and better and more weather resistant to, one, celebrate the stats, the figures, the men and women who put on heck of performances in the arena. And that arena records board now is underneath the Buckaroo chutes, basically in the main thoroughfare of the rodeo when you come out of the Western Village. Within the museum, and again, we can't celebrate that museum enough, because like Mike said, maybe we weren't broke, and if there was a Krispy Kreme raffle or whatever, I do believe you can tell that I probably had some of those. I'm definitely out of wrestling shape, like I was back in the day. But the art of fame, the wine of fame, the incredible artists, they allowed us to make some really good decisions, some really thoughtful decisions. And that museum, we are trying to keep it as interactive and as up to date as possible. So we are increasing, we have a board, or a committee just to preserve and grow our archives, something we're going to talk about a little bit more. But one thing in particular that I'm very, very proud of, and in fact, our entire Hall of Fame board should be proud of, is this year's speaker series. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the mic, so maybe nobody can tell me I'm wrong or not. But I believe it was the Ellensburg Rodeo general manager, Megan Meeks, who had seen some other rodeos kind of have a couple of speakers or two at their events, whether it's rodeos or kickoffs or something like that. And she came to our board, or maybe it was even Daniel Beard here, one of our board members, and said, could we do something about that? And Janelle, don't tell your husband I said this, but Daniel took it above and beyond where we even thought to do. So the speaker series was absolutely incredible. Daniel, my hat is off to you because, we weren't sure what we would expect. We kind of had an idea of what we were going to do, every month at the beginning of the year through just a couple of days ago on the 23rd of each month to celebrate 1923 at 7:23, which is military time 1923, we would have a speaker series that highlighted our Native American neighbors, highlighted our rodeo board, some past board members, Brian Twardowski, Ken McRae, Scott Repp was one of our speaker series events. I believe that was just a couple of months ago. We've really tried to make it as interactive and as wide-reaching as we could, and we weren't sure if 5 people were going to show up or 55 people, and we way underestimated, and it was an incredible problem to have when we had a crowd problem at the museum. It brought in a bunch of people. It's downtown, so hopefully people were interactive downtown and maybe getting dinner or maybe making it a night out to where they got an afternoon or an evening beverage before or after the event. And so having it downtown, while I thought it was a great idea to put it near the rodeo grounds, having it downtown truly is it makes it accessible throughout the year, and it's just absolutely incredible. And then now going forward, some of the things that we want to do, we'll talk about it here in just a little bit, but keeping it specific to then and now, we want to improve our archives and how we protect them and catalog them as well. So again, hats off to the Hall of Fame, but hats off to the community that funds the Hall of Fame, whether it's individual donations or grants or corporate-oriented donations that not only keep us afloat, so we're just trying to make it a heck of a museum that keeps interactive and keeps changing with the times as well. So Hall of Fame board, congratulations to you guys. So I believe, and I'm looking for my dessert dash people here. We're going to be announcing the Dessert Dash winners here in just a moment. And as looks like we're still tallying those up there in the back. But everybody probably has been involved with the Dessert Dash once or twice, but just to forgive my repetition, if you haven't been involved in the Dessert Dash, obviously everybody put their number and a bid on the form. We tallied it up, and the highest bid will go first. 3 to 5 seconds later, the second highest bid, I'm going to call your table. And then it going on and on and on. The desserts are in the back. Again, the Kittitas County Cattlewomen providing those desserts as they done in years past. And so hopefully everybody knows what they're looking for. I think it was was it 16 or table number 20 who said, are we good with the carrot cake? Are we good with something, maybe it was a rhubarb or something? So there's definitely some strategy going along here. So give me a moment as we get our Dessert Dash winners here, and I'll be announcing those in just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, I jumped the gun a little bit. I talked about the speaker series a little bit, and that was such a success that we want to give a little bit of a montage of the last handful of months of speaker series. So, Nate, if you can start the show.
It is officially 1923 on the standard time period, so we're going to begin our celebration of the 100-year anniversary of the Ellensburg Rodeo. My name is Daniel Beard. Welcome on behalf of the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame to the first night of the speaker series. Thank you so much for being here. I had kind of a fear that Mike and I might be the only ones sitting here, and I'd sit for Mike for 30 minutes and learning about tonight as the subject, the beginning, the 1923, the beginning of the Ellensburg Rodeo. I really do think the behind the scenes, the work that the rodeo board has put into 100 years, you know, there's been blood, sweat, and tears poured into the event in the community for all this time. So it's a whole lot of work, a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of, sleepless nights going into this, but it's also the biggest party our town has had for 100 years. So, thank you for everybody for your work in doing that and keeping that going. So I'll welcome board member, professor, rodeo historian, magician, Mike Allen. Okay, Mike Allen.
The couple of board members are worried about the seating situation. I said, don't worry, after I get started, we'll start losing a few folks. I'm Mike Allen, and we're going to talk about rodeo tonight. Rodeo. What is it? Rodeo comes from the Spanish word, rodeo, and the Spanish verb, rodear, means to encircle or to round up, which is our connection here, or with a historic connection, and that's what really separates. Rodeo is connected to our history. Where does it come from? I'm going to talk about four basic elements. They are Wild West shows, Enchaleada, which is a Mexican folk festival, equestrian event, powwows, Indian powwows, and then finally roundups and ranch rodeos is where we'll finish.
This is the last cowboy song, the end of 100-year wars.
So as you can see, we have a beautiful museum here. It's something that funding has been going towards, but it's a big step. It's a chance for us to actually showcase everything we've been donated. It's a chance for people from outside of our valley to come and see the rodeo and see what we have and what we stand for. We also have upstairs well over 2,000 artifacts up there. We have our website. We also have a YouTube page, if you have not been there, that's rather robust. Our YouTube page has past rodeos, has past rodeo parades all the way back to 40s, 50s, so on and so forth. We've been posting all of our speaker series on there. We have interviews of all of our inductees.
The French have their food. The Italians got Rome. The British got their castles. There's one thing that identifies Americans more than anything else. And what is that? It's the American cowboy. And one thing that epitomizes the American cowboy more than anything else is rodeo. It shows the might, the will, the sheer perseverance of the cowboy in a public spectacle, not unlike the Coliseum of Rome. But we have a special, talented man tonight who is a saddle maker. His name is Janman Pinar, and he is building 100-year anniversary saddle for the Ellensburg Rodeo. Janman, would you come join us, please?
So my name is Janman Pinar. I grew up, born and raised in Southern Africa. I moved to the US, became a citizen. And these days I make people's dreams come true by building them exquisite saddles, but actually highly functional saddles that allows them to achieve their performance to the highest level.
Reminiscing tonight about 25 years ago, or 26 years ago, I guess, we were at the Elks. We were at the Elks building. It was a Lucky Pierre reunion, actually, and we got to talking because the 75th anniversary of the rodeo was coming up, and we got to talking about an idea of having an Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. And Rick Cole was there that night too, and that's kind, that was kind of the genesis of the Hall of Fame.
Tonight too. So we're going to kind of go through a deal where we're talking about the evolution of the rodeo, both on a physical basis, which is the facility and how it changed, and also how the event changed over the years, and actually starting in 1969 when Ken McRae was elected to the Ellensburg Rodeo Board and served until the year 2000. He was the arena director for many years, and he's going to be one of our panelists.
It was a lot of work, but I enjoyed it very, very much. It got to be the biggest thing in my life outside of my veterinary practice and my family. So I was sort of came here with a little rodeo background. I started competing when I was in high school and went to my last rodeo at Pendleton, Oregon at the age of 75. So.
If you see a buckle on Joel, it's John Justin Committeeman of the Year. It's an award that only one committeeman out of 600 rodeos gets each year. It's presented in Las Vegas. It's kind of a Super Bowl ring, and both Ken and Joel have that, and I don't think they've been. Yeah. So anyway,
and then Scott, just to extend that point, also from our community, Steve Alder won that award about 10 years ago. So Ellensburg Rodeo Committee has 3 of those awards. To my knowledge, there's not another rodeo in the nation that has been able to exceed that.
And the other thing, the first year I was ahead of the kiddies parade the week before the Ellensburg Rodeo. I remember that very well, and we had stick horses on parade downtown Ellensburg. For some of you old ones, it was kind of a hit. All the little kids brought stick horses and they rode up and down the street. So
we are a large business. We're over $2.7 million business a year. That's a big business by any measure. Yet we're not a business. We're the blood, sweat, and tears of this community. We're passion. We're about this community. We are volunteers, right? So balancing that is a tremendous challenge.
Yes, they call her the rodeo lady. They cheer her again and again. They shower their garlands around her, and they watch her like watching for rain.
Let's shine the light, literally and figuratively, on our guest speakers here today. Ladies, have a seat. These ladies have a few things that they want to say about just the history of the Royal Court and then their role as a Royal Court member.
And then came back individually and gave our speech on why we wanted to be on the court to a bunch of 15 men who were all very stern and nobody ever smiled. We left not knowing who was the queen, who was the princess. The next day, we got a call from somebody on the rodeo board telling us and our parents that we were the ones selected.
And there were families well represented in our valley that had title holders. There were 14 title holders in the Schnebley family. And then there were, with the Weeks, the Miners, the Bradshaws, Bulls, Drivers, McManamy, Gregriches, Clarks, Fitters, Breidenbecks, Rainwater, Brown, and Habermans. And they all had multiple title holders in their families. So very well represented.
So traditionally, the King County posse selected one of their daughters to fill the King County princess position on the Ellensburg Rodeo Royal Court. If they didn't have a daughter of the right age, they would seek out a girl that they knew. I was one of those. So they came to me and said, would you be willing? And I did it.
From Molly and the Ellensburg Rodeo Board.
He is every bit of a cowgirl's horse.
Well, depends what you define as I have yet to lose my hat. It has come very close. I have so much tape inside my arena hat and bobby pins that I stick into my head. It is quite painful. I take a lot of ibuprofen before that. I got to do that on a borrowed horse that came off the movie set for Heartland. It was super cool. And then got to go see the performances, got to go see the Chuck Wagon races, which they're also celebrating 100 years of the Chucks up there.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of wanted to give a little synopsis of what the speaker series was all about. If you're here tonight, you were probably at the speaker series at least once or twice, if not all of them. But we hope to have more of those. I'm not going to commit to a monthly speaker series. I won't even commit to a quarterly or some sort of timeline. But the success was so good But we want to continue to do that as one of the ways our museum continues to adapt and be interactive with our local and our nationwide rodeo community. But that kind of rolls into what we want to talk about. Everybody knew that we talk about how the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame thrives on the donations of time and effort and elbow grease, and obviously people opening up their billfolds. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're not shying away from it or anything, but our fund to need this year is going to be a little bit different. So it's kind of a 50-50 of sorts, not a 50-50 raffle or anything like that. But our funding, we have certain goals and very specific things that the Hall of Fame wants to do in the coming months to coming years. But we also have tried to do as best as we can to give back to the community in terms of our archives and our speaker series and our educational stuff that we have online. But we also want to kind of give back a little bit monetarily to the cowboys, because without the cowboys and cowgirls, the ropers and breakaway ropers and barrel racers and team ropers and such, saddle bronc riders, we wouldn't have a need for an Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. So tonight's fund to need, we've seen considerable growth and success over the past 20 plus years. And, like I said, we 100% understand it's because of hard work of many volunteers. And so we made it a point to give back. 50% of anything that we generate today will go to anybody familiar with the Justin Sports Medicine trailers? You see them at many, many rodeos. The Justin Sports Medicine team is absolutely incredible. And that is 100% funded by Justin Boots. What we would like to put part of our donations, half of our donations from tonight, we would like to put that to the Cowboys in Crisis Fund. Now, we're going to have a video here in just a moment about what the Cowboys in Crisis Fund does. But before we get to that video and a couple of stories that I have as well, what are we going to do with the other half? So we have a lot of work that we do. We've improved the HVAC system. We've improved our audio, video. We've increased our archives. What are we going to do now? We want to improve the way we store and protect our archives. Some of our archives are protected in our homes. Some of them are protected in our storage facilities in the Clymer Museum there downtown. Some of our archives we haven't even received yet. But we are trying to improve how we store and protect those archives, but also little things like this. Some of our displays are right there in the window on Pearl Street, and it's a west-facing window, and it gets beaten down by the sun. And when at first I thought about this, Mitch, we've talked about this a lot. I didn't realize how important window tinting was. Maybe it doesn't get the attention of Dan Mortensen on a saddle bronc or Justin McKee saying something on the grand entry, but window tinting is important in terms of how it preserves and protects the things from not getting damaged by the sun. It might sound mundane, it might not be a buzzword or things that get attention, but it's the way that we're trying to preserve and protect the things that are bestowed upon us. So our archiving and protecting what we have on display is what we have kind of earmarked for 50% of the fund to need. And then, of course, the Cowboys in Crisis Fund. We're going to have a video here in a second, but I want to tell you about somebody who definitely needs our help right now. There's a handful of cowboys that do, maybe a handful of barrel racers and breakaway ropers that do as well. But anybody who follows rodeo probably knows a gentleman named Trenton Montero. And Trenton, he's a bareback rider, newly married for the last year or two, I believe. He has a baby as well that's, if the baby's not one, it's close to it, but it's a young one, not walking yet. Trenton had a horse follow him in I think it was Homedale, Idaho, just a couple of weeks ago. And the horse bucked, fell, and landed right on top of him. Broke multiple ribs, broke his sternum. He's had 6 surgeries. I believe the last surgery was to remove his spleen. I believe they're also considering removing his pancreas. I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't sound good to me. He had some sort of damage to his aorta, which again, I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't sound good. The guy needs our help. And somebody said the other day, well, they choose to be a cowboy. They chose his profession. Yeah, that's how he pays his bills. That's how he buys diapers. That's how he keeps the electricity on. That's what he chose to do. So we can choose to do the same thing to try to help him out. So I'm not trying to be opportunistic or sound opportunistic to make somebody's, quite frankly, tragedy sound like I'm a salesman here. But that's the kind of guy that we're trying to support. So yes, I want to take care of my Hall of Fame, and I want to take care of my Cowboys and the passion we have for it. But I also want to take care of the men and women in the arena as well. So, Nate, if you can help us with the video here, and they'll say a little bit more, probably a little bit more eloquently on how I said it tonight.
The bullfighter's down. That hurt him. Now Braden's going to help him.
Well, that's Dusty Tuckness, too.
That's Dusty. He's stuck right there. Tuckness sees the wreck coming. Look at it. He's right in harm's way, and I think he twisted his left leg.
Yeah, he did.
Right over Braden.
Yeah, that could be a broken leg right there as he gets stepped on. That could be pretty serious down that line with Dusty Tuckness.
10-time bullfighter of the year, and just none better. And you don't expect that to happen to the best in the business, but we all know that it can and sometimes does.
Hey, it's professional bullfighter Dusty Tuckness here. I just want to give a huge shout out to the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund and all they do for us rodeo athletes to help us bounce back from injuries. This sport is definitely a game of injuries, game of inches, and the do's and don'ts and what could happen. And we really couldn't bounce back the way we do without the love and support from the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund. And can't thank you all enough for all you do. Keep giving, keep caring, and keep believing.
In rodeo, it's not a question of if you'll get hurt, it's when and how bad. Coming off my first NFR in 2020, I was confident in my ability and in my health. Unfortunately, I was wrong, and in Odessa, Texas, I suffered a major back injury that set me out 6 months. Thankfully, the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund stepped in to cover my living expenses throughout my 6 months of recovery. I can't explain the gratitude that I felt. Thank you to the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund for having my back.
Hey everyone, my name is Becky Mask, and I just wanted to give a huge thank you to the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund for helping me out. In September of 2021, I was in a horse accident and broke my back and fractured 4 ribs, so I was out of work for a while. I sent in my application to the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund, and they sent me some money back. The money that they sent me was a huge blessing to me and my family and took off some of the burden of having to figure out how to pay for bills and things like that. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that they give our cowboys and cowgirls. Thank you for everything, Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund.
Things were looking really good in the fall of 2021. I was sitting 7th in the PRCA World Standings with visions of making my first NFR. But things changed in a matter of seconds when I was bucked off 3 weeks before the end of the season, breaking 3 vertebrae in my neck. With no way of earning a paycheck, the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund stepped in to give me a hand up. By covering my cost of living expenses, they helped me through tremendously, and I couldn't be more thankful for them. Thank you, JCCF. You too can help injured athletes today by texting the number on your screen.
That's who we're trying to support, ladies and gentlemen. So you have your fund and need cards. We're going to be pulling those from not only each table, but each individual. Do what you can. I know sometimes it's monetarily, which is wonderful. I see some volunteers every year at the Justin Sports Medicine truck and trailer that go to many, many rodeos to show you how much that team works, whether it's the Crisis Fund or the nurses and doctors who are in that trailer. They wanted, there was a few of them who wanted to be here tonight. They're in Kennewick right now. Kennewick is a pretty big rodeo, just 2 hours down the road from us. And I think it's kind of fitting that the reason why they couldn't be here is just because they're still out there protecting our cowboys and cowgirls. So if you haven't already, fill out your Fund a Need card. We'll get those pulled here in a second. And then we're going to be doing the dessert dash here. Well, let's just start that right now, shall we? So, dessert dash. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Again, the highest bidded table. And here we go. When you hear your table being called, head on down to the dessert dash table. Table number 21. Table number 21. Here we go. She's up and rolling. So 23. Table number 23. Table number 23. Your turn. Your turn. Is that Bill Lau there? How about table number 22? All the 20s. Where's 22? Let's get going. How about table number 1? Table number 1. All the way. Table number 1. There you go. Table number 10. Table number 10. Go get your prize. Table number 10. Shademan doesn't. Here we go. How about table number 19? Table number 19. Table number 3. Table number 3 here. Daniel. It's unfair because Daniel's legs are like 8 feet tall. How about table number 11? Table number 11. How about table number 8? Table number 8. Table number 8. She's on a mission. She's on a mission. I believe that was my carrot cake lady. Table number 17. 17. Table number 17 on the end. There we go. Table number 9. Number 9. Table number 9. On the end. Is that a Perna family member? That's right. How about table number 5? Table number 5. Matt Olson, Dana, there you go. Table number 2. Table number 2. Number 2. Bridget, go. How about number 7? Table number 7. Table number 7. Austin, you are the lucky winner. Table number 7. Number 24. Table number 24. Table number 24. Number 24 is up and rolling. Number 28. Table number 28. How about table number 13? Number 13. There we go. A former queen on the run. Number 16. How about table number 16? Number 16. Table number 12. The Queen's table. Table number 12. And we're going to wrap things up with, how about table number 27? 27, 25. Table number 25. Table number 18. Table number 26. Table number 15. Table number 15. Dana, good call. That's my table. How about table number 6? Table number 6. Table number 20. Table number 20. And wrapping things up is table number 14. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating in the Dessert Dash. Again, the Kittitas County Cattle Women's providing the desserts as they've done in the past. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue and let's keep on rolling. And let's start celebrating the reason why we're here. Like I said, we have 5 inductees tonight. 5 very, very wonderful inductees. 2 of them are here tonight. 3 of them couldn't make it. I believe Cody Ohl is in a match roping. Rich Skelton is either in Tennessee in a clinic or driving the truck for his daughter Bailey. And then, of course, Rick Smets is also, he had a prior engagement he couldn't get out of, or pardon me, Rob Smets. But I wanted to start things off with Mr. Cody Ohl. And I have a couple of notes from some interviews that I've had with them. You know, we have his biography here in our magazine here, but just to kind of give you a couple of notes here, Cody Ohl, he won 5 world calf roping titles and a world all-around championship, and that included $3.5 million in PRCA earnings during his remarkable career. Now, he was born in Texas in 1973, actually turns 50 next month, if I'm remembering correctly. He was a national high school rodeo champion before he joined the PRCA in 1994, and he was Rookie of the Year, so he hit the ground running and got as many accolades as he could just starting from his rookie year. He qualified for 20 NFRs, the National Finals Rodeo, 20 NFRs, and he won the calf roping titles in 97, 98, 2001, 2003, and 2006. And in 2001, he won the all-around title as well. Does anybody remember the 2001 NFR, specifically the calf roping, specifically in the 9th round? Cody Ohl was in the driver's seat in the 9th round of the calf roping. He was also in the driver's seat in the all-around title as well. He ropes his horse, or pardon me, he ropes his calf. He misses his first loop, if I remember correctly. You gentlemen might be able to remember this. Missed his first loop. He caught on his second loop. And when he was dismounting his horse in that tiny basketball-sized arena, he planted wrong. Boom. Knee is gone. I believe it was his left knee. Gone. Just like that. And anybody that was watching it, I wasn't there in Vegas that year, but I watched it on TV, and I could still remember when he fell, the TV camera, the angle was bad enough to where he disappeared behind the arena wall. And then he basically crawled himself to the calf and somehow, with one knee, flanked the calf, finished this tie. And he had to do this in less than, I think it's 25 seconds, in order to get a qualified time. He did that for a couple of reasons. One is he was in the running for the all-around and the calf roping world title. And secondly, he did that because that's Cody Ohl. Cody Ohl was a take-no-prisoners kind of cowboy. And I know he's had some medical problems in the past. He's had multiple surgeries on that knee as maybe age and time gets to him, but he's a phenomenal roper. He's had significant success here in Ellensburg. Again, he won Ellensburg in 96, 97, 99, 2015 as well, and that's just kind of rattling off the top of my head. You can't talk about Cody Ohl without talking about his horse as well. So Shane Hanchey, who won the world title in 2013, this is a Cody Ohl story, but I got to start with the name Shane Hanchey. I remember talking to Shane after the short round of Ellensburg. Shane Hanchey was out of the top 15 as he was coming up to Ellensburg, and he needed to win, but he was having horse problems, so he called up Cody and he said, "I need to borrow your horse, Pearl." And anybody that knows calf roping knows that horse Pearl is phenomenal. So maybe it's not Pearl that we're inducting, but Pearl is definitely associated with Cody Ohl, and guys like Shane Hanchey, who ended up winning the world in 2013, credit Cody Ohl's wonderful support of helping him win Ellensburg and also helping him win the world title. So, ladies and gentlemen, our 2023 inductee, Mr. Cody Ohl. Another gentleman, Rich, who can't be here, but had just a laundry list of stories about Ellensburg when I talked to him a couple weeks ago, or the last time I talked to him a couple weeks ago. One thing that resonated with me as a dad is he wanted to talk about his daughter Rhonda and his wife Rhonda and his daughter Rainey more than he wanted to talk about him. And Rich Skelton, if you know team roping, you know Rich. Rich Skelton, along with his partner Speed Williams, won the world title 8 years. Not only 8 years, but it was 8 years in a row. there was a term, if you want to get rich, you got to have speed, and that was synonymous. He goes, he has no idea where that came from, but he said it was true for us. And so it was a moniker that stuck really early on in his career, or at least his career with Speedy. But Rich, the first time he won Ellensburg, which I believe was, let me check my notes here, was in 1990. It wasn't with Speed. My history is escaping me here as I'm in front of the mic, but he won Ellensburg in 1990. He won Ellensburg again with Speedy in 2003. He won the steer roping title on his own in 1996. And while he never won the Ellensburg all-around here, he was always a factor in our all-around race for that all-around saddle. So Rich is obviously most known for his team roping prowess, and I don't think there'll ever be another Rich Skelton or Rich in Speed to win 8 world titles, but to do it in 8 in a row. And Rich, of course, said that was because of, a little bit of luck. The ball bounced his way, or the rope went his way, or the steer went his way a couple of times when probably he lucked out on things. But I also think that Rich created his own luck by just incredible hard work. He was very focused on the road. He was blessed with great partners. He talks about a gentleman named T. Woolman, which anybody who knows rodeo in the 70s and 80s and 90s will know T, a multiple-time world champion. So Rich Skelton is a heck of a roper. He says here, and I quote, "When you look back at it, we had some good horses, and everything was set up at the time, and that's all we thought about. That's all we did was rope. They were just so focused on just winning." I mentioned his 1990 title here in Ellensburg. That win helped him. He says he sealed up the NFR, his first NFR, with the winnings he won at Ellensburg. And just to kind of give you a perspective, I looked it up, and he was pretty much spot on. He said he had about $28,000 won with the Ellensburg win, and that sealed up the NFR. And if anybody watches the standings like I do on a daily basis, 28,000 probably won't get you, probably not the top 50, but it's amazing what rodeo has done in terms of increasing purses to the cowboys and such, and that's a tip of the hat to the rodeo board here for making our purse one of the best ones in the business. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to speak. We actually have a video of him pretty much accepting his award, and take a look at the buckle on the end table right next to him.
Hi, folks. Rich Skelton here. I'd like to take a minute to thank the Ellensburg Rodeo Committee for putting me in y'all's Hall of Fame this year. It's a very good honor for me. Sorry I can't be there with y'all in person, but it's very cool to be in the likes of Harry Vold, Clay Cooper, and Larry Mahan. Those are very good rodeo icons, and it's very cool for me to be able to take part of this. But I really love y'all's rodeo. I've always had a lot of success there. I actually secured my first NFR at Ellensburg in 1990, so I really appreciate this honor and hope to see y'all again in the near future with my daughter Rainey.
So, ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee for 2023 is Mr. Rich Skelton.
Hi, folks.
I'm going to introduce a couple of cowboys who are going to talk a little bit about Rob Smets. We're going to start with Mr. Rick Cole.
I know everybody's saying, oh my God, it's a lawyer. Get some coffee. I'm very honored to be asked to induct my friend Rob Smets. I've been on the board and watched Rob work his first rodeo here in Ellensburg. He worked with Miles Hare. The cowboys and cowgirls that come to Ellensburg, and I think the Justin Sports Medicine film was kind of indicative. It showed every one of those competitors, whether you're riding in the roping events, timed events, steer wrestling, rough stock, they all risk serious injury at any time. Horses are large animals. They're very predictable at times and unpredictable at other times. I've admired all of the competitors for what they put at what they risk every time they get on the animal or participate in any rodeo. But I've been particularly impressed with the bull riders, who I think are the second to the top group that risk injury on a regular basis. If you looked at that list of people that had been helped by PRCA, by Justin Cowboy Crisis, most of those people were bull riders. Now, the other group that isn't a competitor, but is a contractor as far as our rodeo term is concerned, but is crucial to the success of the bull riding event, are the bullfighters. And those people are at the top of my list for those that are at risk anytime. The introductory photograph was of Dusty Tuckness when he was stepped on in the 9th round at the NFR. And that's the risk they take, but those guys go right into the bull every single time. As soon as the rider is off, from my perspective, that's when I really watch the event, because I really appreciate and what those bullfighters do is amazing. The good ones react. The great ones anticipate. And you see that in our arena because we always have the best. Rob Smets and Miles Hare were the best in their time. They learned it from Wick Peth. Wick Peth set the bar for bullfighting. It stopped being an act, and it started being cowboy protection. And Rob and Miles carried that to the nth degree. In Rob's career, I have to get these on now. He had 5 NFR appearances. He was a 5-time world champion bullfighter. He was a 9-time PBR bullfighting champion. He's 17 times he was in the Wrangler National Finals bullfighting that they used to have after the bull riding in the NFR. Many of you that remember watching that event because it was mesmerizing, and particularly when Crooked Nose was in the event. That was a 2,500-pound pure Brahma bull with one left horn, and he worked those guys into that left horn every single time. It was, I mean, you think those animals aren't that smart. It was amazing to watch, and he was quick, too. And Rob won that 5 times. The last time, he shared it with Miles Hare, his buddy, his partner. When Miles was working our rodeo in 1982, he was working with Bob Romer, who announced his retirement. Buck Miner was the contract director for the rodeo. You all remember Uncle Buck? He was a man of few words, wasn't he? And so Romer told him, you know, this is it, I'm done. So Buck went to Miles and said, who do you want to work with? And Miles laughed at him and he says, you've got a world champion bullfighter picking up broncs in your arena. Because Rob, at that time, was married to a Christensen brother daughter, and he was picking up broncs for Christensen brother, who supplied rodeo stock to us for many years, along with Harry Vold. And that's how Rob got the job. And he said, Buck came up and said, well, what do you work for? Well, Rob didn't want to, he didn't know what to do, so he just said, I'll work for the same amount that Miles is working for. In 1983, that was $450 a perf. It's changed a little bit. During Rob's career, he had 3 broken necks, broken leg, and was gored. Their job is to step into and put themselves between the bull rider and the bull. I talked to Miles about Rob. Miles said, when you worked with Rob Smets, you did not worry about his side of the bull. because you knew that he had that covered. And if you happened to slip and fall, he covered your side too. Ty Murray said that when Rob Smets was working, he'd get on a wildcat as long as Rob was in the arena. And all the bull riders knew that they were being protected. One year, Miles and Rob, and I think it was their last year, 89, 88, and my memory is that it was a tough Hedeman, but he got thrown over his hand. Both Rob and Miles, from opposite sides, jumped into the middle of the bull's back trying to free his hand. The bull did one big up-de-doodle and threw all three of them up in the air, and they landed in a big pile in the arena. And the bull got distracted by the barrelman at that point. But that was part of the deal. He is a friend. He is one of the best bullfighters that ever put on a uniform. He, interestingly enough, thank you. He, interestingly enough, started the whole thing about advertising on jerseys and that sort of thing because he put on a sports jersey and started selling space just like the Cowboys were doing, and that started a whole movement. So Rob's been ahead of the game. He's very sorry he can't be here. When you watch the bull riding, pay particular attention to those three guys that are working in our arena. They are the best, Dusty, Cody, Nate, but they're following the mold set by Wick Peth, Miles Hare, and Rob Smets. He was called the Kamikaze Kid because he went into the bull just like a kamikaze. As soon as that rider even started to come off that bull, he was moving towards the bull, just like a fireman moving towards the fire. And that's their job. He's a wonderful guy, and Joel Smith has something that Rob wrote for us. But I'm proud, very pleased to induct Rob Smets, a great bullfighter, into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you, Rick. I spoke with Rob yesterday, and he asked me to read his appreciation for his selection and induction into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. This is from Rob. The glasses are going to go. I apologize for not being able to be there this evening to receive this honor of being inducted to the Hall of Fame of one of the greatest rodeos in the business. To think the first time I showed up in Ellensburg, I was pickup man on Bronx for the Christensen Brothers Rodeo, and that weekend since, I didn't have a Labor Day rodeo and wasn't able to fight bulls. Rick took the next part of his comments, but he says, many guys helped me in my career, and from the start, Frank Gomes, Bill Landis, Brian McNair, but the four people that played the biggest part of how I ended up here tonight were Wick Peth, Skipper Voss, Jimmy Anderson, and Cocky Doodle, who is Miles Hare. Miles Hare, I am so grateful to all those guys that were my mentors, and especially Miles, who stopped me from giving up and going home in 1983. We were always treated like we were right at home in Ellensburg. Your committee was fantastic, and I am so grateful for the long-term relationships with that committee. I can't even begin to express how super they were to me. Thanks to everyone who had to vote for me to be inducted into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Love you all. God bless. And thanks again for the honor of being inducted into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Rob Smets, one of the great.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Rick. I'm not going to steal his thunder, so I will let Mr. Daniel Beard induct and introduce our next inductee.
It's my honor and privilege to welcome this evening and induct Dan Mortensen into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Let Dan talk about his career a little bit more, but 6 bronc riding titles and 1 all-around title, 7 world championships, 3-time bronc riding champion at the Ellensburg Rodeo. 3 quick stories. I called Dan to have the conversation, informing him that he was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I had a student teacher who was in the room with me at school when I had the conversation. And got done with the conversation, and Kyle, my student teacher, turned to me and said, "I think you'd be more excited if you were being inducted into the Hall of Fame." And I really turned to Kyle at the moment and was like, "That's because you don't know the strength of Dan Mortensen." In the conversations, his mental toughness carried him through such a brilliant career. In conversations, maybe he'll share this, but if it was the highest moment, he would calm himself down. If it was a moment that he was maybe experiencing frustration or something like that, he would boost himself up, encourage himself to do his best. The mental toughness of Dan Mortensen, hopefully we'll hear that tonight, but it was incredible through his career. Story number 2, Dan and Don Hutzel, you will agree with me on this, Dan was always the guy you wanted to draw your horse. In his career, you knew that whatever that was, your horse was going to have an opportunity to shine to its best ability with Dan riding. The first horse that I ever raised myself that won a rodeo, Dan Mortensen, did that. I don't know if you remember that, Dan, at the Brewster, Washington rodeo. You won the rodeo, it would be like 2001 or something like that, on a colt, 4-year-old that I had raised called Daniel Boone. Like the first horse of mine that won a rodeo, Dan was the one who won it. Number 3 story, you just hear this all the time. I'd be curious, maybe Dan will address this when he comes up. Does he have a book that he writes down everything? Does he study it out? His memory is incredible from the accomplishments he's had, but also just he knew directions on horses. He knew the rein on horses. I've always been curious if that was just a mental got it or if there was study involved in it, but all the time, incredibly dedicated to his craft, looking all the time for how to make it better. Dan would come up to us as the contractors and make suggestions. You know, what if we tried this? Have you thought about doing this? What if we changed directions or placed a pickup man or did something like that? All the time, Dan had the ability to think about what could we do to make this thing better. And with that, I'd like to welcome one of the great bronc riders in the world, Dan Mortensen. Come on up.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Ellensburg was one of my favorite rodeos to go to every year. I'm from Billings, Montana. I rodeoed in the Montana circuit for about 10 years and kind of got frustrated with how they're approaching our sport over there. I thought the circuit out here in the Northwest, Columbia River Circuit, Washington, Oregon, was just doing a lot better job of promoting the sport, taking the sport forward, and improving the sport. So I ended up actually moving circuits and came out here and rodeoed with the Columbia River Circuit as my main circuit. My favorite time to rodeo was in the fall. I just loved the rodeos. I loved the quality and just how they approached it. So Ellensburg was definitely, you know, one of my favorite rodeos. I love this time of year to rodeo. It cools off. They brought in multiple contractors it was a riding contest to me. It wasn't a drawing contest. When you entered Ellensburg, you're going to have a shot at a good horse, a horse that could bring you back to the short round. And when you look at the buckles on your wall, the ones that mean something, Ellensburg was right up there. I mean, it was just a rodeo that you're proud of. You know, there's certain rodeos in the sport that, you know, you're proud to be there, you're proud to win, you're proud to take part of. So it was an honor when Daniel called me and asked to be inducted into the Hall of Fame at Ellensburg. Not only was it a good rodeo, but they took care of the contestants. They treated them well. You know, you show up at Ellensburg, you had a place to park. We're packing a saddle, a rigging bag. By that time of year, a lot of guys, you might be beat up, sore. You don't want to have to pack your stuff a mile to the arena. You know, they gave you a place to park. They were happy to see you when you showed up to their rodeo. You know, they made you feel welcome. That right there, I mean, it just shows the quality of the committee and the job they do with the contestants. Contestants look forward to entering this rodeo. They look forward to competing at this rodeo. There's a lot of rodeos in our sport that probably need to get out a little more and see how other events are doing it and how they take care of the contestant end of the situation. So Ellensburg's always done a great job with that, and I appreciate it. On behalf of all the contestants, thank you. If I had one thing to say, though, as much as I was honored to get the call from Daniel to ask me to be in this hall, I have a wife at home and 3 kids. My kids are 10, 8, and 6. They've never seen me rodeo. And I love it when they get to see what I did, what I accomplished. And then I got some paperwork in the mail about this event, and we get it all the time as contestants. We want to honor you, but we're going to raise a lot of money over the deal. We're going to use this as a fundraising opportunity. And that turns us off as contestants, as people you're trying to honor. You know, I'm friends with every one of them guys that's on that board over there. I know Cody Ohl. I know he's a friend. Rich Skelton, Bob Smets. I'd love to see them guys. If you're going to honor somebody, honor them. If you want to raise money kind of on a different level or a different deal. But if you're going to honor somebody, don't invite me here as a fundraising opportunity. Because this sport means too much to me. I am passionate about the sport of rodeo. It is my life. It is something I dedicated myself to from the time I was 11 years old. And I look at rodeos now, and this is a great rodeo. I love this rodeo. I love the heritage. 100 years. You guys have done a phenomenal job. But there are a lot of rodeos out there that need to improve because this is our sport that's in their hands. And they need to do a better job of looking out for the heritage of the sport of rodeo. Because there's a lot of people in this world that are passionate about it. And I know there's people in this room that are associated with this rodeo. This rodeo wouldn't be as great as it is if it wasn't for people that are passionate about the sport of rodeo. Thank you, Ellensburg. Thank you for everything you've done in the last 100 years. Thank you for the way you treat contestants and thank you for the rodeo you put on.
I'm not even going to try to follow that up. Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it very much. Next up to the lectern is Mr. Scott Repp.
You know, about a long, long time ago, better get to the speaker. A long, long time ago, I actually went to college here and finished. On God, I don't know how. My mother, that was a good example of the reason I did that. But anyway, I'd have those tests and stuff, and you know, I had to have what some people called a cheat sheet. I just put that at some notes, so I'm going to be a little different than everybody else. I got the toughest job tonight, to talk about a guy that's a professional announcer, to talk before him. But anyway, I think everyone here this evening in this room would agree how fortunate we are that the Hall of Fame Board of Directors puts on this event. Them, including the Ellensburg Rodeo Board, put in a tremendous amount of time, you know, to have this event happen. We're all here this evening to benefit for their efforts. If they don't mind, the Ellensburg Rodeo Board and the Hall of Fame Board of Directors, I think, need to have a hand, or a little hand, clap their hands, what I'm trying to say. I feel honored to be here in the year 2023, 100 years since the Ellensburg Rodeo started. The stellar group of individuals that we inducted this year are second to none, and it's a real honor for me to be here. As you look around this room, I think many of you will see friends of your own, friends of the Ellensburg Rodeo. In 2000, while serving on the Ellensburg Rodeo Board of Directors, I met and made a very good and new friend, Justin McKee. Shortly after the rodeo, I sent a letter to Justin, and I said, you know, if you come back to Ellensburg next year, why don't you come and stay with us? We got steers, we got a heel horse, you know, and we'd sure like to have you come. Today, Justin and I were talking, and I guess it's been 22, 23 years he's come back. Must have worked okay. Horse was good or something. But anyway, in 2000, the Ellensburg Rodeo had just hired one of the best voices in professional rodeo. When Justin came to our rodeo, he brought with him the expertise of a PRCA cowboy, which he was, arena record holder, which he still is. He was an announcer for the PBR, for rodeos. His family raised bucking bulls, cattle, and barrel horses, so he had it all. With a golden voice, he was able to educate our audience, but he never took away from what was going on in the arena. Oftentimes, he'd be having an interaction with the clown, but if there was something going on in the arena, Justin McKee made sure that all the attention was to the cowboys. I've often thought that Justin should open up a school for instructing young announcers how to announce professional rodeos, because in my mind, there's none better. Over the last 20 plus years, I spent a fair amount of time with Justin and his wife, Jeannie, who's sitting down here beside Justin right now. Anyway, often Justin we'd be doing something socially, and Justin would say to Joe and I, my wife, we'd be places, and she'd say, they're from Ellensburg. And the people kind of look at us, and they'd say, have you ever been to Ellensburg? Have you been to the Ellensburg Rodeo? Justin likes Ellensburg. He loves the rodeo. Anyway, Ellensburg is so fortunate to have Justin as a friend of the Ellensburg Rodeo. Often on the Cowboy Channel, he makes favorable comments about Ellensburg and the Ellensburg Rodeo. Justin also has a very strong faith, as many of us know. He often starts the Ellensburg Rodeo with a prayer that talks about God, family, and our country. Most of us are moved by this patriotic and spiritual convictions. To show you what kind of a guy he is, I guess, several years ago, one of our directors that I was on the rodeo board with had a terminal illness. And Justin, after breakfast one morning, just before the rodeo, he said, "Would you like to go to town to visit our friend?" And I said, "Sure." So we drove to town. We met with our friend, and his wife was there and daughter. And I was taken back by it. You know, we had a nice visit. Justin, at the end of the visit, Justin asked if we'd like to say a prayer. Anyway, we held hands, and I looked at my friend, and in his eyes, the tranquility in his eyes, he was kind of, accepting, what was going to happen. And I'll never forget that day, and I know their family here in town appreciated it very much. He just didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Justin is a devoted family man. His wife, Jeannie, his daughter, Cassidy, he thinks the world of him. Behind every good guy is a woman, and there's one sitting down here is the gal for Justin, and he's very fortunate in my mind. This is a beautiful valley we all live in. One year when Justin and Jeannie were here, I took them up to Mount Stewart, the top of Mount Stewart, on a trail ride. It was pretty cool. Their daughter, Cassidy, was tiny. I mean, she was small. I think Joe was her very first babysitter, and that was kind of quite a deal. We got up to the top, and we took pictures and talked and looked at the view, and I remember telling Justin and Jeannie that they should make a Christmas card out of that deal. I think they might have done that. It was pretty fun. About the same time, Cassidy was maybe 3 or 4 years old. They came back to the rodeo, which they often did. And anyway, she said to me real serious one day, she says, "My dad trains bulls." I'm like, "Okay." She says, my mom trains barrel horses." And I said, "Perfect." And I said, "What do you do?" And she says, "I train kittens," just like that. He was And at that same year, it was so cool because Ellensburg has a junior rodeo, and they have some barrel racing stuff going on. And Jeannie and Cassidy went out to the barrel race, and Joe and I were home, and they came home, and of course she asked us, "Cassidy, how'd it go? How was it?" And she was kind of down, and she says, "I got second." Man, that's pretty good. And she says, "My mom couldn't run any faster." Well, for most of you, if you haven't been to that at that age, oftentimes the moms grab the reins, lead them through the pattern. She wanted her mom to run faster, but what's cool about this story, I think anyway, is that Cassidy attended college on a rodeo scholarship. She and her mother are both seasoned WPRA barrel racers and travel the country barrel racing, so they're very, very good at it. And anyway, it's pretty interesting to go from that mom pulling me not fast enough to being in the professional rodeo gig now. So, the voice, it's a real gift for sure. A couple of years back, Justin came down to visit us. We spend part of the year in Arizona, and we went out driving around one day to look at some friends' new house and arena. As we were there, a couple guys drove up on these quads, kind of wondering why we were, snooping around this brand new house and arena. And Justin was sitting in the back seat, and Joe and I were in the front seat. And these guys were a little bit rude, kind of, what are you doing there? And the guy looked back there, and he saw Justin, and he says, "Are you that guy?" And Justin didn't answer. And the other guy, he said, "Say something." So Justin said, "How you guys doing?" And he said, "You are that guy." Anyway, Justin's voice is a natural God-given talent, but that doesn't mean he doesn't work at it. I've been around him for the last 20 years every morning while he prepares for the Ellensburg Rodeo. I mean, he goes through every contestant. He wants to know the name of the people that are pushing cattle up at the arena. I mean, the guy works at it. It just doesn't happen. Local people, well, who is he and who's he related to? And they're in the wild cow market. I mean, it happens for a reason. All the contestants, the success they've had in the rodeos, that guy right there, he tells us all, and we appreciate it very much. For the last 20 years, our family has produced the Westar Pro-Am Best of the Best roping, we call it. And anyway, we're one of the proudest years we had was when Justin won the Pro-Am. Got a nice saddle, got some money, got a fancy buckle that I'm proud he wears a lot of times. But anyway, the roping was going pretty good the first couple of years. You know, we were doing it as a family deal, and it was growing. Justin, as a friend, volunteered to announce. That thing took off to the date. I think the first year we paid out $20-some thousand. Last year it was $260,000. You know, Justin McKee is the reason. It ended up on television, you know, Justin McKee, and we thank him for that. I'm back to my last cheat sheet to get out of college here, by the way, anyway. Many of you will probably remember the year that when Justin came out of the announcing booth when clown Keith Isley was there, and they team roped. 4.9 seconds. The crowd went wild. The crowd went wild. However, there was another time when Justin went out of the arena that didn't quite end up quite so well. He was standing in the arena during the bull riding, and the bull charged towards Justin. Well, Justin says he made a big fake, you know, but it didn't really end up like that. The bull almost took him out. The crowd gasped, the place got pretty quiet, and it was kind of a thing to laugh about. It makes a fun story now, but man, if we'd have lost Justin that day, the Ellensburg Rodeo would have been in trouble, trust me. Anyway, I don't believe Justin's ever gone back in the arena to fight bulls or announce. I'm not sure, but he might have. But anyway, the Ellensburg Rodeo has a friend, and he is a special friend to our family and to Ellensburg. And I'm proud and honored to introduce our friend as the new Hall of Fame member, Justin McKee.
Woo! Wow. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to a big build-up and introduction. I'm the one that's giving the build-up and the introduction. I'm completely taken back. I really am. I am so thankful. This is one of the greatest days of my life, and this is one of the finest honors that I could ever receive. And if you'll forgive me, living in a modern age that we do, that's ever changing, especially technology, since my parents couldn't be here, and since I'm not Dan Mortensen and getting inducted in very many Hall of Fames and getting honored very often, this is very rare for me. So Dan, if you'll just kind of allow me to make a little video for Mom and Dad who wasn't able to be here tonight. And yeah, everybody wave to Russell and Terry McKee back in Kansas. All right, there you go. Work it, work it. Yeah, there you go. All right, that was you all were spectacular, by the way. That was fantastic. Yeah, I owe a lot to Mom and Dad. They were good folks. They were good parents, and they let me be a boy. And that I'm very grateful for. When I was 4 years old, I wanted to do two things. First of all, you got to know that my parents were in the cattle business. My dad bought cattle, and he owned livestock auction. And I was raised in a sale barn, and I was raised around livestock. And I'm double-bred pioneer, Midwestern pioneer families, and very proud of that fact. But so I was around livestock and grew up on horses, and there was two things that I loved. I wanted to ride bulls from the time I can remember. And when I was 4 years old, our local rodeo was in Coffeyville, Kansas. Harry Vold was a stock contractor, and I can remember standing outside that bullpen just thinking, man, if they just let me at any one of them, I would gladly get on, and I would have. Fortunately, since my dad was in the livestock business, one day he was at a sale barn, and there was a miniature bull that came through there. A dwarf bull. He had horns and a hump and a mottled face. And matter of fact, we called him Funny Face because in the middle 1970s, that was the popular song. Remember that? So that was my first rodeo experience, was getting on Funny Face. And then it continued all through high school and until I was wrestling, and I was involved in sports in high school, and I dislocated my shoulder wrestling one day at a match, and then getting on bulls later, that continued to happen. And my bull riding career didn't last as long as I hoped it would. And the other thing that I was completely taken by as a kid at 4 years old was, since I grew up in the auction business, I was fascinated with this thing. When I was 4 years old, I knew I was going to be a world champion bull rider and a world champion auctioneer. True story. And I was very determined. And like I said, thank God my parents let me do what I wanted to do. I grew up getting on, just going through junior rodeos and high school rodeos and getting on bareback horses and bulls and whatever I wanted to do. I mean, I was driving by myself when I was 8. And a lot of you my age and older, you know about that. The rest of you younger probably don't. But I'm thankful for that. But I was mesmerized. So another one of my earliest memories was in the auction block. Before the sale started, I'd find my way up to that auction box, and I knew how to turn this thing on. And I could turn that thing on, and I'd get up there on that seat, and there were some old men that would show up for that auction early. And they would oblige me by waving and bidding. And then some of them got to hollering, and I started really getting after it then. And I was hooked. When I heard my voice come over that electronic system the first time, I was hooked. I knew something was the rest of my life was going to have this involved with it. And so that's how my career started. Now, when my two worlds collided, I'll never forget, I was getting on a bull in Moline, Kansas one day. Yeah. And you'll love this, because I wasn't just a real good, calm, easygoing Dan Mortensen type. I'm pretty all in, high amped up all the time, and I was then, and I wasn't very focused at the time. And I can remember getting on that bull, and it was just a high school rodeo. And I mean, I'm literally pulling my rope, and this guy, of course, he's a volunteer announcing a rodeo, and I literally just looked up there going, that was a dumb thing to say. Why is, that, I could do better than that. And it's like, when I get done with this bull, I am going to be a rodeo announcer, because if this guy can do it, I can dang sure do that. So that was when my two worlds collided right there, and I knew at an early age. Fortunately, our FFA chapter put on a junior rodeo when I was a kid in high school. The senior president of the FFA chapter got to be the announcer. I was the announcer my senior year, and that just kind of set me up to meet some wonderful people that led me down just a fairy tale of a career. And I can't believe I'm standing here. I want to say thank you to the board. I'm a history buff. If you really know me, you know I love history, especially Western history. And I know it well, and I'm proud for what you guys are doing. I'm very proud, not just the rodeo, but to the rodeo. You guys are outstanding, and I appreciate you very much. I'm honored to be inducted alongside these guys, and I'm not very good at hiding my thoughts. What you see is what you get. Sometimes that works good, sometimes that doesn't work so good for me. But today I came in here to do an interview with Nip Tucker for the oral history for the museum. And I walked in this room, and I was really taken back. And the first thing I saw was that table over there with Rob Smets and Cody Ohl and Dan Mortensen and Rich Skelton. And I see all them, then I see me. What you see is what you get. I'm just going to tell you what went through my mind. I'm like, how in the hell did I get on this table right here? What in the world? All these guys that I have looked up to, and I have the highest respect for what they've given to our game. And I'm just I'm so honored. I live in Hyco, Texas now, hometown of Cody Ohl. And matter of fact, one of my steer roping horses, I sold to Cody Ohl in 2003. And then in 2004, he won the World All-Around Championship because he was riding, well, I think because he was riding my old horse. But the thing about Cody Ohl is that the next year I would win a lot of money at Cheyenne. And I placed it everywhere. And I was always on a limited competition schedule because my announcing schedule. And I couldn't go to very many rodeos, but after Cheyenne and this and that, I just seemed to place everywhere. I went to Pendleton, placed in all 3 rounds, won second at Pendleton. And all of a sudden, I found myself in the top 20 of the world. I'd only been to 8 or 10 rodeos. And Cody Ohl, he said, hey, won't you, he said, I'm not going to make the finals. He said, you got a shot. And he just gave me that horse back for the next few months. And I finished the season out after Cheyenne. And I'm really grateful for that. Of course, Dan Mortensen, I've watched him. We're about the same age. I literally remember picking up the intercollegiate newspaper going, man, that's the guy that I would like to be right there. There's the guy. And, of course, I've just been a huge fan ever since. Dan, you've been a credit to our game. You're just a man of great honor and integrity. And you're a man that is so passionate about where we've been and where we're going. And I just respect that greatly. And I can say the same about Rich Skelton. Has become a dear friend of mine. He introduced me to a guy by the name of Chris Cox. Maybe you guys have heard of him, the greatest horseman in the world. He's become my closest friend, and I'm thankful for that. And then Rob Smets is one of my closest friends in the world. We have a deep friendship that we spend a lot of time together on the road. But I'm very honored about that. I got to tell you about the phone call real quick. I'm going to tell you about a phone call. I'm going to tell you about a letter, a couple letters. I got a phone call from Boyd Polhamus in 1999. He said, are you sitting down? And I said, I am. He said, all right. He said, Phil Gardenhire has just been killed in a tragic car accident unexpectedly near his hometown. I said, whoa, okay. Of course, I had idolized Phil Gardenhire, and I had just gotten to know him in recent months. He, there in the middle to late 90s, the PBR was really kicking into gear, and I was working a lot of those. I got to work several of those in 97 and 98 with Phil Gardenhire. Dream come true. And I just want to say that I got to know the man, not the announcer. I was always a fan of the announcer. I got to know the man. And man, he was amazing. He was just as amazing outside the arena as he was in. And then I got another phone call. Actually, it wasn't a phone call. It was a face-to-face meeting. Ken McCray is, hear it for Ken McCray. That's right. I was announcing a PBR at the Pendleton Roundup one night. The next night, I'm entered in the steer roping. And at the steer roping, Ken McCray came up to me and he said, hey, I was at that PBR and listened to you announce last night. And he said, I see you're a steer roper. I said, yes, sir. And he said, all right. He said, I'm with the Ellensburg Rodeo Committee. And he said, we're looking for an announcer. And you could have just, I didn't pass out. But on the inside, I passed out. I couldn't believe it. And then later he called and he said, hey, I've talked to the board. And he said, we want you to come up here. And then there was the sign. There's a sign. I showed up here at Ellensburg after Bob Tallman filled in for Phil Gardenhire. Ken was true to his word, and I showed up here the next year terrified, absolutely terrified. And I'd done some PBRs, but this was my first major rodeo. And as Harry Vold used to say, he said, there's a difference between the top 25 rodeos and the rest of the rodeos, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're riding or fighting bulls, you're announcing a rodeo or judging, whatever it is, there's a difference. And this was my first shot at the big time. And I remember the first day I'm walking up to the announcer's stand and I saw the sign. The sign to me was as big as the MGM sign in Las Vegas, you know, the one that's as big as this room. The sign above the announcer's room that said, the Phil Gardenhire room. I can go to the step walking up there, halfway up the Buckaroo section, and I thought, I can go home right now, or I can go up here and finish the deal. And it was a 50-50 toss-up, because when I saw, they named the room after him, for crying out loud. I can't follow this guy. But I went ahead and went up the stairs, and I'm glad that I did. Glad that I did. There's a big reason that I did. The reason I did was because at the convention at Las Vegas during the NFR, I met the committee. And there was a guy by the name of Bill Subert who pulled me aside. And he said, hey kid. Can't you hear him just say, hey kid. He said, hey kid, you're going to be all right. This is going to work out really good. And if you need anything, I'm going to be right there for you. Of course, we all know that Bill was the guy that Scott was talking about, whose house I went to visit a few days before he passed. Of course, there's a bright side, because when I showed up, I was working with his daughter, and I swear me and Trish went to different high schools together, okay? And we announced the parade together the first year. And I got to know Mary and Meg, and I'm so glad that they could be here. So he kind of set things up. But when I got here, Roger and Claudia Weaver did the same thing. They grabbed me around the neck and said, hey, you're going to be all right. And if you need anything, we're here. And they told me that every day the first year that I was here. Might not seem like a big deal unless you're the guy following or trying to follow Phil Gardenhire. I got to watch my time here. I'm not going to keep you too terribly long. I got to work with great people like Flint, Rasmussen. I cannot believe, I tell you, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Everything. I mean, from wanting to be a bull rider to being an auctioneer. And then when I get to go pro, I got Bob Tallman who's got my back, and I grew up down the road from Clem McSpadden. I mean, you just couldn't have written it any better. And then the same age as Flint Rasmussen. And I've worked with the two best guys that's ever done this, with him and JJ, and I still just, you just can't believe how much fun that we have. I mean, it ain't no show. We can't fake this stuff. I sure can't fake it for 23 years, you know. And so I'm very thankful for that, and I'm so thankful for Kim Black. Kim, I don't know where are you sitting at? Where you sit? You stand up, girl. That is my Ellensburg. That's my Ellensburg wife right there. Thank you, Ed. So the other fortunate thing that happened to me is that when I was going through the stages of growing through rodeo and competing and announcing, I met a blonde-haired Oklahoma girl, and I was a Kansas guy, and I would eventually follow her to Oklahoma State and marry Jeannie. And there was one thing missing for me, is I wasn't a trusted insider. But when I started dating Jeannie and we got married, you got to realize that her father was a very well-known, very well-respected calf roper, steer wrestler, and a steer roper. And her uncle was a 5-time world champion steer roper, Schultz Webster. And I married into a legacy family. That was the missing link. And it just made all the difference in the world. I automatically had a bunch of Ken McRae's and Rogers and Bill Suberts, you know, kind of in that department too. It was just incredible how that worked out. She taught me how to be a cowboy. I was a cattleman, but I wasn't a very good cowboy. Certainly wasn't a very good horseman, still not, but she's still working on that. And I'm so glad that she could be here. She's been home ranching, taking care of our ranch for a lot of years and raising our daughter. And now our daughter's raised, and she got to come here tonight. So I'm very thankful for my wife to be here. I couldn't have married a better woman. And she's put up with so much. It's hard. It's hard to be the wife of anybody in rodeo full time. I promise you that. It's hard. It takes a tough woman. And I married a tough woman. And then I got to tell you about the letter. Scott, he mentioned that he wrote me a letter. And my version of the letter is a little different. Scott, Rep, after the first year that I announced, he sent me a handwritten letter. And he said, hey, I met you a few times. I'm on the rodeo board. He said, I'd love to have you come out to our place. He said, we love to rope like you love to rope. He said, we have an arena and 50 head of steers. And I'll never forget this. In parentheses, it says, now that I've got your attention, we really want you to come out. And we have done everything. Yes, that first year we climbed the Stewart Range a horseback. We floated down the Yakima River. We have eaten in every restaurant, and if you're with Scott and Joe, not only do you eat at the finest restaurants, you get to know the owners and managers and cooks too, which has been amazing. We've shot pheasants, and we've done amazing things. We've climbed the Menashe Tash. Well, maybe we haven't done that, but we've talked about doing that. That letter changed my life. That letter changed my life. Scott and Joe Rep are not only two of my closest friends, but besides my parents and grandparents, no two people have had a greater influence on the person that I am today. If there's anything good, they've probably been a big factor. And matter of fact, if I had $1 for everything I said, good for you, good for you. It came from that guy right there. And I'm so thankful for that letter. And I'm so thankful that they've opened up their home to us. And all the times that we've shared, especially in the morning. I can't wait for coffee in the morning. That is amazing. There's a little more to that I got to share with you. And I know I'm long here. I was watching my favorite show. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't even watch Cowboy Channel. But I'm going to have on the DVR some John Wayne, some Gunsmoke, and some Andy Griffith. And the other day, I was watching an episode of Andy Griffith. And there's this guy that shows up in Mayberry. And he knows everybody's name. I mean, he goes into the grocery store and said, hey, Mr. Foley, how's it going? Man, I see you got a good deal on apples out there. And then Mr. Foley's going, who in the world? And then he walks down the street and he sees Mary Lee. And he said, Mary Lee. And Mary Lee's pushing a baby carriage. And Mary Lee, how's Billy Joe doing? And Billy Joe's a baby. And he's talking, oh, Billy Joe, how you doing? And Mary Lee's like, who? And then he runs into Andy and Barney. Hey, Andy. Hey, Barney. And he's walking down, the street. And the whole episode is that he knows everybody in town, and everybody's going crazy, and they're having town meetings going, who is this guy? And at the end of the episode, they finally pinned him down, and Andy said, okay, tell us who you are. And he said, I know I probably overreacted a little bit and everything, but I'm just so excited. They said, what are you so excited about? And he said, I've never had a hometown. He said, but I was in the Army with a guy who had an incredible hometown. He was from Mayberry. And he said, we were in the Army together, and he would get the Mayberry Gazette. And when he was done with that paper, I read that paper every time. And he said, even after I got out of the Army, I kept getting the Mayberry Gazette, and that's how I know everything about everybody. He said, this is my hometown. And I said, oh my goodness, that's me in Ellensburg. That's my hometown. I know everybody in this room. I'm so proud of that. I have deeper, stronger, and more relationships than my real hometown I grew up in. And there's one reason for that. Primary. All of you, primary, I guess. But second or first, I don't know which, is because every performance for 22 years, we go back to Scott and Joe Reps, and I said, hey, who's the top hand guy with the beard and the mustache, you know, really good, that's got the really good looking wife? And I go, Scott, or I go, Scott Shelton's wife is Kay, right? Right? Yeah. And we have these conversations all the time. And now who owns the lumber yard now? And every day for 22 years that I've been here. And just like that guy on Andy Griffith who was reading the Mayberry Gazette because his buddy knew everybody, I've got Scott and Joe. I got Scott and Joe. Unbelievable. And so in closing, when I compare this town and this rodeo to every place I've ever been, this is it. This is the best. This is my #1 rodeo town that I've ever been in my life. And I'm so thankful. One more thing, and it's this. I've watched a lot of guys that I know that are some of the toughest mentally people, strong individuals, tough guys, get up here and go into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame in Colorado Springs. And I watch them, I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but I see them for the first time lose their emotions. And I've watched them for a long time, and several people, I go, that is the toughest guy I've ever seen as a competitor. How is he losing his emotions behind that podium? And it hit me when I got the phone call from Joel Smith that day, a few weeks ago, a couple of months now, when he said, Justin, you're going in the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. And I lost it. I don't lose it. Not in this setting. He never lost it in a bronc saddle, ever. I don't lose it up here. I don't. But I did. And as I've grown spiritually, I realized why. Because we're all after the same thing. The same thing. The biggest thing for all of us, our greatest need and desire, is to be accepted by a community. Nothing's more important. You can lie to yourself all you want to. At the heart of everything on the inside of us is we want to be accepted by the people that we love the most. And you people, I love the most. Thank you so much for respecting me enough to put me in your Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Justin, thank you very much. I'm not going to try to, we'll just wrap it up. There's no way I can top what these two men have said. It's pretty clear that they're passionate about rodeo. They're passionate about their community, their family, and that family spreads out to the rodeo family as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's been an incredible event. 5 very worthy men were honored tonight, and they deserve everything, including a round of applause from us one more time. So I'll wrap it up by saying we are going to conclude our event tonight. Our bar is going to remain open because we're amongst friends and family here, which means that we're going to continue to talk and maybe debrief on what we heard tonight. We'll probably make some plans about what's going on for the rest of the weekend and, of course, next week. But, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you very much for bringing your families. Our speakers who inducted you two, I really appreciate what you guys have brought to the night as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Drive home safely, and we will see you at the rodeo next week.